the biggest learning is you can see the outcome. Let's face it, with your parents when they started, their house was worth X much, X dollars, it's now worth this much. So it doesn't matter, it's over time, you get the end result you want to get to. I know we always say, an investor is never disappointed after 20 years, you know what I mean, of that property that they've held accordingly.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard. Here's your host, Tabitha Bright.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name is Tabitha Bright and I'm the head of coaching here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey a little bit easier and will inspire you along the way. So my very charming guest today is Kel Watts. Kel learned very early on how important it is to have the right coach to guide you on your journey. And we get to hear what happened when he moved out of his principal place of residence, his home, and unfortunately it got rented to a drug mule. So we get to hear all about that, what happened and how he popped out the other side. And lastly, he shares his top tips for investing successfully. So heaps to learn. Enjoy this conversation with Kel. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I have the fabulous Kel with me today, a client of Megan Wolfenden, who is one of our coaches up in Queensland. And Kel, thank you for being here today.
Absolute pleasure, Tab. No problems.
Awesome.
It's good to have my turn. Happy days.
Well, it's actually lovely getting to talk to so many different people because obviously I talk with the people that I still coach, but there's so many clients, over 8,000 across Australia and New Zealand, and it's lovely getting to hear everyone's stories. I feel in a very privileged position.
Absolutely. Plus being COVID, Tab, we've all been locked away, haven't we? So
we have.
Anyway, it's all about the
change. I got we got the team together, the coaching team and the property consultants. We got them all together last week for the first time in probably about 18 months because, it's really important to have that connection. By, I reckon, about 2:00 on the first day, I was done. I could barely, I was like wanting to fall asleep on the bus because we were going all around Melbourne doing the stock tour of, what properties were Sam and the team were looking at. And I was just absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
It's like I've lost my ability to socialize. I don't know about you.
No, 100% agree. And you see it, you know what I mean? People are on their phones straight away, aren't they? When you've actually got someone, holy God, I haven't had this for a while. And it's just good to get that one-on-one vibe again.
It actually was really nice. It was really lovely.
I can understand how you think it's exhausting on the same thing, Tab. So
it was exhausting. I'm very happy to be back in my little office at home with my Zoom.
Yeah.
So to talk about you rather than me, I'm going to launch straight in there because I think there's a story in here. I've got some fabulous notes from you. What is the weirdest or funniest thing that has happened to you in property investing? Because I'm looking at your answer here and I want to hear some more detail in this one.
Yeah, Tab. So whether we classify as weirdest or was maybe creepiest might be the right words. But look, there was an opportunity to work away. We're sort of back in 2012, 13, 14. But Brisbane wasn't that great in terms of employment opportunities. So happy to go where the business went. So we obviously worked away, and part of that role of working away, we thought we'd try and make a little bit extra income. So at the end of the day, we reluctantly put our fabulous principal place of residence, in the tenant pool. So the message here was it ran absolutely smoothly. Like you wouldn't believe when we first got the first tenant. They were 65-year-old people. Never heard anything from them. We liaised with the property manager accordingly. 12 months in, we come and inspected the property. They opened up the door to us. Welcome to your property was how we were actually greeted after 12 months.
Wow.
Which is a rarity. So anyway,
perfect
in the
tenants.
middle, 100%. In the middle of all this, the real estate kept bugging us. They kept saying, you need to put your rent up. You need to put your rent up. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it. Just put an extra $5. I've got a great tenant, don't want to do it. Anyway, it got to after 2 or 3 years of having these people in here, the decision was made, okay, well, let's put the rent up. You know, we're sort of paying the body corp, we're paying for a garden, we're paying for the water, we're pretty much paying for everything.
Yeah.
And that was on the basis that we wanted them to look after our property.
Yeah.
Anyway, the real estate agent rang us. There was 2 opportunities. There was a tenant, which we thought probably not the right caliber. We went through the next tenant, thought, yep, they've got the goods. So it was a young guy, about 26 years old, $150,000 in his bank account. Maybe that should have rang. A bit of alarm bells, Tab. Always pays his rent on time. You'll love this guy. Keeps the place immaculate, all those things. At this stage, it was 2014 when this tenant had moved in. And I was up in Darwin at that stage working on a gas plant. Now, phone reception was woeful. You couldn't get reception. You had to wait till you actually got on the bus and actually headed back home, back to Darwin. Anyway, my phone beeped. It was actually a Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I was just going ballistic. I had 10 or 15 messages. Geez, property manager's ringing accordingly. What the hell's going on?
Oh,
So I rang up and the
that's
property
not
manager.
good.
No, the property manager said to me, "Have you heard the news?" And I said, "No, I haven't. It's the first time I've been able to get the call. What's happened? Please don't tell me the house is burnt down." Went into, you just go into, God, the bizarre mode. What the hell has happened? Anyway, she said, "I'm just giving you a heads up. Your house has actually been raided by the federal police." So you can imagine what that thought process, all of a sudden, we've now got an undesirable in our house. What the hell is going on? Is it hydroponics? What's in the garage? What's the state of the house? All those things. But prior to this, it probably should have raised some alarm bells because our gardener rang us out of the blue. And he said to me, "Mate, are you putting up cameras around your house?" I said, "No, I haven't authorised it." "Why?" He said, "I'll send you a photograph." Cameras, Tab, there was 3 cameras appeared on the outside of the house. He said, "I don't want to peer in, no one's home at the moment. Don't do that. I'll get on to the real estate agent." So I spoke to the real estate agent. "Could you please get around there ASAP and find out what the hell's going on? We haven't authorised any cameras." And it was the next day when the real estate, just before they got there, the house had been raided by the federal police.
Ah.
So
drugs, obviously.
There was drugs. There was $50,000 worth of cash. There was weapons. Everything was up on the ceiling.
Oh.
It was full on. We had a guy at that stage. Our roller door, the motor and the roller door had gone. So we'd actually organised somebody to come in and get things fixed straight away. Stuff the tenant around. So you can imagine you got 7 or 8 undercover coppers come in, the detectives, the whole lot, bang, and they basically escorted the guy out. So the worst part was, Tab, I said to the real estate agent straight away, "I need to get this guy out of the house. Just whatever you need to do, get rid of him." So you can imagine the real estate then trying to get this guy out of the house, who was obviously in the clink at that stage. Cut a long story short, when I've gone back and checked the bank account, bank balance to see where it was at, he transferred $10,000 lump sum, $10,000 advance payment into our account. So the difficulty then was, you can imagine with $10,000 lump sum being deposited into your account, what do I do? What do I do as a property owner? Let's just say proceeds of crime. What the hell do I do now?
Oh.
I can say, right, I'll transfer the $10,000 back to the real estate agent. But what's the verification? Do I need a transmittal to confirm I have sent it? And everything then goes through your mind accordingly. This guy's going to come after me and say, "Well, you haven't given me my money back." So, Tab, we had no other choice but to leave that, we say that tenant in the house for that period until it expired, until we could move him out. Anyway, let's say 2 or 3 days, I was due to roster, come home. We organised the real estate. I need to come in and see the house. It was just the eeriest feeling, Tab. The house was set up as a display home. The ducted system we had, it was set at 18 degrees. All the windows were frosted. And sure enough, inside the house were another 2 cameras. So it had been happening for a period of 6 or 7 months. And they were just living in the back room. So it was, I would say weirdest, eeriest, but yeah. Anyway, it wasn't long after they moved. I thought it was time for us to come back home. And we were sitting in the lounge. It was about 8 weeks after the event. Notwithstanding, I'm out mowing the lawn. People are coming back going, "That's him. That's the guy that was handcuffed. Out he went." All these things are going through your mind accordingly, Tab. So we said it was midnight. Yeah, sitting there, I'd actually fallen asleep on the couch, and I heard this Harley Davidson cruise past.
No, bikies.
Yep. It was all, and I thought, "Oh my God, what the hell do I do now?" If they're going to knock on the door and say, "This is something I think you owe us."
You owe us 50 grand.
Exactly right, Tab. So all those things go into your mind. And all we did was just lease the property based on, what we're informed, through the real estate agent saying it reputable. anyway, as it turned out, it was just somebody in the neighbourhood, and then I went in, got the peacemaker, and thought, God, what am I going to do? Open the door, and there's this big burly bikie sitting there. Holy dooly, you know what I mean? But look, the message is not trying to lead bikies into that. They're not all the same. You know what I'm saying? But it just went through your mind with, when you've spoken to the police on who was involved, sort of thing. Within reason what they can disclose. Ooh. So I know it's nice to make a bit of money on the side, Tab, but I can tell you now, if I ever worked away, it's taught us, we're in a position where we're not that far off paying our house off, but I'd never do it again accordingly. You know what I mean? Yeah, anyway, it might be the best look, but yeah. So that was our weirdest arrangement we've had with a tenant.
I think I've had such a it's funny because some of the people I interview have had the craziest things happen, and then other people are just like, no mate, nothing, and I've been investing 20 years. I think it's just the luck of the draw. I had one of my first podcast interviews, Abe, I think his dad was managing his property and managed it and rented it out to bikies. And they went and did an inspection, and he had something like 30 dead chickens or headless chickens hanging on the washing line. And that was really hard getting the bikies out, but they got there. And so I guess from your perspective, have you still got the property?
Yeah, that's where I am now. So we didn't do anything. We didn't change any locks. We thought, well, so we rang the federal police guys. Look, this is me. I'm the owner. My wife's here. Would you guys love to come through the house again? And said, mate, we've done everything we need to do. So we thought, okay, we were looking at that stage, given it felt dirty, Tab, that you're living back in your house that had the proceed, you know what I mean? Of the niceties there accordingly, what was stashed in the house. And I'm glad we didn't sell, to be honest, Tab. We're through all that accordingly and distant memories. But I hear what you say in terms, other tenants we've had, along the journey, no issue whatsoever. I know they talk about, if it's a good property, your property manager's always there. You don't need to worry. This was just a really interesting one. And what, you probably wouldn't have worried about it too much, Tab. It's your own principal place of residence. You know what I mean? That all of a sudden they're cutting holes in your wall to put cameras in and doing all that stuff, lifting tiles on the roof, and what's the real estate agent doing? So anyway, it'll happen so quick. But we've still got it. We're here now, so we're going to get rid of it.
No more cameras?
No more cameras, Dad. Not at all.
No more cameras. It's hilarious. It's sobering. Yeah. And it's such a different world to what we live in. Occasionally I read the newspapers and you hear about, the Ibrahim brothers and the, whoever it is, the bikies, one in the street. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, look, I understand the principle. We're actually living in a gated community in Hope Island. So, where it was actually situated, whilst you say you're in that community, there's obviously people that are in here for that reason as well, Tab.
Yeah.
So, we were pretty lucky compared to, because there was another 2 houses raided in here as well at that time. And when you actually saw, because the first thing, I couldn't wait to see the Queensland News accordingly when you're up in the Northern Territory. And then you actually see the other footage of the other properties, and literally the roller door, it's got hydroponics, it's got the full setup, everything in the garage. We were extremely lucky from that perspective, Tab.
Yeah, you didn't have.
Notwithstanding, maybe Energex or someone's going, what the hell's going on there with the electricity bills? So
and water. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually a giveaway and the old oil on the windows.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ah, well, interesting. But you came out the other side of that, and I guess that's the moral of the story, isn't it? It doesn't. You can have these challenges, other challenges, but you just have to see it through and pop out the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
were you able to claim insurance for fixing up the property at all? Did you have any coverage on that aspect?
Yeah. So look, we held a bit of, and again, this is a bit of an eerie thing as to how you hold somebody like that, with their body corp and all this, or their bond.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we used the majority of that, but because we were working away and they were in there for a period of time, where the cameras were located, it was just it was just a very tight, just a quick fix sort of thing. We'll give the front a bit of a paint. And like the house did at that stage, needed a bit of a paint. So you can sort of see this nice bit of board at the front. It's all nicely painted, and the rest of the house is a bit dull. And that annoyed me then to the stage, well, now we need to go and get the house painted. Do you know what I mean? So we pretty much, we did okay in terms of the rectification. We weren't sort of out of pocket. And look, it wasn't a huge amount. It was just sort of cameras accordingly, and everything was out. There wasn't anything else that had been damaged in the house, Tab.
Oh, that was lucky, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this didn't put you off property?
Oh, no, God, no. No, definitely not, Tab. I mean, when we look at it, I always reflect back on this scenario. It was a bloody godsend that it did happen, to be fair, because of the ups and downs that you have.
Yeah.
The equity that we've got, which we've managed to be able to leverage now off our principal play. So if we just started, just said stuff that we're out of here because of bad experience.
Yeah.
It's a good community. It's a great area. Why just give that up because of the bad experience? And to be honest, Tab, that'll live with me on this journey accordingly, no matter what we do. There's always something you can do. There's always something you can get around it to turn that, but I don't really use the word negative, but sort of the negatives into the positive and still come out in that the positive end.
Well, hats off to you and your mindset on that stuff, because I know, and I think it's one of the keys to people's success is that ability to go, okay, well, that was an experience of itself. Now let's remind ourselves of what is the whole goal, the total goal, because one small experience on I hate the word journey, but on the road is not going to always define the end goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think for you, this has been something that I am hearing from you. You and I were having a frank chat beforehand, and we were talking about how important it is when you have a mentor or a coach that you have somebody that sits right with you and that you connect with. Because when you first started with Positive Real Estate, Megan's your coach now, but you had a different coach.
Yes.
And that person you didn't have quite the rapport with. And so you've been brave enough to put your hand up and then say, guys, I'm back, I'm here. Can I have another coach? Is there anything you want to kind of share on that journey and how important it is to have somebody that sits in the right space for you? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, look, we'll touch on that just briefly, Tab. Obviously, in that early stages of joining back in the day. What did it? Obviously, got a mentor for life, so to speak, you know what I mean? And someone you can liaise with. But I guess from those first experiences, it just wasn't that tight, what would you say, the relationship, if you like, that you do need to have with your coach.
Yeah.
And to the point, Tab, that's why we went off in limbo for a bit. It was 2017 when we thought, you know what, let's just have a little bit of a break for now. This is not what I brought into, I suppose. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you go to the emotions of going, why is it you? Who is it? But it was actually me, Tab, at the end of the day, because I was sort of shielding myself from that. I don't want to call the coach because what's the point? It seems like it's going to come across, or you should know that, or how come we're talking about this again, or whatever the case may be. But anyway, look, we jumped back on the horse. We thought it was actually, I'm digressing slightly, but I'll lead into where I'm going with Megan. It was a conversation sort of mid to late last year with, somebody else. And my wife said to me, why are you talking to anyone else when you've paid for the group? Why don't you get back on the horse and re-engage? So we did that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and it was one of those of, your mindset's then, what if it's the same coach? They're going to have the same look on things. They're going to, no, let's really give this a go. And along come Megan. So, and just chalk and cheese.
Oh,
absolutely
brilliant. Awesome. Yeah. So that's working for you now with a shift in coach and focus and rapport.
Absolutely. And even to the point, look forward to me, says, hey, time for a chat. How about we go through a cash flow? Oh, beauty, shit, I need to get on this straight away. Happy, let's do it. You know what I mean?
That's
so
awesome.
And reflecting back again on that initial experience with a nice tenant, it would have been something that you could have actually had a chat to somebody about, somebody that surrounds you, somebody that you can talk to accordingly. I think that's the key. And I reflect back in the day when I started reading some magazines, Tab, in terms of, positive investment. PRE was in there at that early stage.
Yeah.
And one of the things was surrounding yourself with good people. You can't do it on your own, was the motto back then. So to be brutally honest, it's absolutely a pleasure having, working, I guess, under Megan. And the other part of that is the PC as well. So at the early stages, James was part of that, James Edenton.
Yeah.
He was actually part of that. So whilst the coach wasn't where it was at, I did have a very good rapport with James. And extremely pleasing to see James is back on. So you've now got a good coach with James. Tab, let's get it going.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I think it's really important to bring it up because, I've coached 15 years now with Positive Real Estate. And sometimes, you have the best intentions to serve your clients, but sometimes you just don't click.
Yeah.
And, and I'll be frank, you and I were sharing, I had a client, Rob, and I'm sure Rob wouldn't mind me sharing. And he came to me, I actually really, really respect this because he actually came to me and said, Tab, look, I think I need to change coaches. I don't think we're a good fit. And I thought, whoa, it happens from time to time. Yeah. But to actually address it with me, I thought was really brave. And he said, look, no issue with anything you've told us. It's just personality wise. He said, you talk too fast, you move too fast. I just need someone that's going to slow. I thought, you know what? Great feedback. Because yes, I do talk fast. I move a mile a minute. I do need to slow down sometimes and get, coaching's about listening, right? Not about talking. Yeah. And so it was really valuable. And I think it made me a better coach. And secondly, we were able to pair him up with somebody that actually suited, and he's happy as Larry and doing really, really well. Yeah. So I wanted to talk through that today because sometimes it's not necessarily about the group or the business. It's about who you're dealing with one-on-one. And if you have some challenges, reach out. If you're not part of an investment group like Positive Real Estate or with Positive Real Estate, and you're thinking about coaching and mentoring, make sure you have the right connection with the person that you're talking to. And if not, put your hand up. If people have a problem with that, then maybe they're not the right group for you. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. And Tab, just on that, I mean, when you look at and I'm going to talk highly of me, you worked that out. There's no dramas there. So what I did like, and I guess it's a lesson for everyone when they get with that coach, is just start from the basics. Where are you at? What's your position? I need to understand your journey to where we are now.
Absolutely.
How can we then pick up? I know we always talk about a marathon, not a sprint, but how can we pick it up from that perspective to understand, what you've been through, what are your experiences? And that was the number one thing there with Megan in regards to that. So we had that good platform and everything was very explained, detailed, methodical. If you didn't understand it, not an issue, you can get the notes, you can go through it. And that's all about that listening as well, Tab, as you were saying. So absolutely, it's a win-win all round.
Well, hats off to you and awesome that you came back and we're very pleased to have you.
Yeah.
And so tell me, what do your friends and family think about your investing decision? Because this is often a place where people have some challenges. They don't have people that they can share with because people rain on their parade in their immediate vicinity of friends and family. And this is a common theme that comes up. So tell me a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, so it's one of those that you've got, obviously, because you've got your coach and everything, there's not a real lot you need to talk about from that perspective. You pretty much ring, hey, I want to talk to you about this, can we do that? So that decisions are going to be made. There's some experience or wealth of experience that sits behind that. If we focus first and foremost in-house, obviously your best mate's your wife, where she's situated, it's always, hey, what's your thoughts? Wife's very good to talk to on the basis, which we'll get into a little bit later, Tab. I guess the motto is safe and sound, and whatever you do not get us into trouble. So with those lessons learned, it's great because I sometimes get a bit emotional. Oh, look at this property, look at this one. What about this? All those sort of things. You know what I mean? Where I was going with that, I'd prefer to keep it in-house, Tab, with my wife. If we focus on friends, sometimes, why would you do that? How many more do you need to buy? When's enough? Although we just don't want that negative feedback. No. I know where that feedback will be when we get into that lifestyle stage. Geez, why didn't I? You know what I mean? Well, and what do you say then accordingly? So we sort of keep to ourselves. We don't sort of say too much. With family, never ever would I discuss it with mum and dad. And the sole reason being is they were, had a great upbringing and all the rest of it. But the first thing they would say is, Holly Dooley, you're in a lot of debt. Are you okay? We can't pull you out if something happens. Sorry, Tab, didn't mean to swear, but if something happens, you know what I mean? So that's what they would be focused on, because through their, I guess, their parents, you bought a house, you paid your house off, a couple of cars, you retired. They just couldn't understand that level accordingly, and would go into stress mode, which obviously the older one's 83 and mum's a little bit younger, but I don't really want them to go through that.
No.
all we need to know is, hey, we're doing okay down here, guys. We've got our principal place of residence, and it's easier just to talk to them that way, Tab.
Yeah. And it's really common. I mean, a lot of the reason that people don't want to do the podcast is because they don't want to be seen to be out there. And I mean, we can remove a video, we can just use your first name and things like that. And most people in my vicinity that I wouldn't want to know anything about my investing, I mean, they wouldn't even be looking at stuff that I look at. So, but people are finding that the negativity, and it's fear of being left behind. It's fear of, people just going, oh, well, I'm not brave enough to do it. I can't do it. I'm too, I'm not educated enough. Whatever their story is, they're worried about being left behind, and they're worried that it makes them not enough, is what I guess is at the basis of so much of this, and wanting, a good outcome for you. And
I think also, Tab, the lessons learned with that are the reason you're very recluse in terms of what you do tell your parents. Is they give you that little bit of advice. So I'm happy to take it from them. It's almost like, hey, you're the son, I'm the elder. You know what I mean? You feel like you haven't been home for a period of time, but hey, you still take a little bit of advice from them accordingly for whatever that may be worth, Tab. But it's, because all they've said to you is, look, don't end up like us. Just make sure you plan where you need to be and, have that behind you so you can be comfortable. Yeah, no worries, Dad, that's all good. But you'll never disclose, hey, we've got the journey, this is where we're at, for that simple fact. I'll take that advice. Thank you very much. Okay, move on. Let's have a cup of tea and some scones. You know what I mean?
No, I do. And it's always, I know a lot of clients feel almost like they're hiding stuff from family. But they don't feel that they can talk about it with many of their friends and family.
And look, don't get me wrong, I'd love to tell mum and dad. Love to, because you feel proud of where you're at. Don't go, what do you mean 1% club? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just to go through all that sort of thing, but you feel proud. But I know you do want to mention it to them, but it's not worth their stress or worry accordingly to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I do. Yeah. And what is your biggest challenge through this process of buying investment property, and your journey to get yourself into a position, your goals? What's the biggest sort of challenge or mistake you've had, and what did you get out of that lesson?
Yeah, well, I guess in the first concept of investing, Tab, when we bought our first one, we bought it was over at Wynnum, Ball Areas, obviously where PRO eventually went. I feel privileged that it was 10 years prior.
Good on you.
All the leaders are over where I went, So what it was is the biggest learning is you can see the outcome. Let's face it, with your parents, when they started, their house was worth X dollars, it's now worth this much. So it doesn't matter, it's over time. You get the end result you want to get to. I know we always say, an investor is never disappointed after 20 years, you know what I mean, of that property that they've held accordingly. So the lessons learned, the focus was to buy a number of, no goals, no plan, no contingencies, nothing at all. And then you realise that plan is not where it needs to be when all of a sudden things do start to go sideways. Tenants moved out or something happens. Going back to that one in Wynnum, we bought it was 2000. I think it was 2004 or 5, Tab. 399.
Right. I guess really early days. So pre-RE. Yep.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it was sort of 399K. It was on the avenues over near the golf course. Mindset was, I'm going to develop this. I'm going to make some money. How do we do that? Doesn't matter. We'll do it down the track. And that sort of lessons learned. There's no goal. There's no contingencies. There's no plan in place. You're just doing it because it's a number. And hey, I own a few properties. So that's the biggest lesson of having that journey accordingly in terms of what you buy along, that road of investment. So,
okay. Yeah. And if I could ask that classic podcast question,
sure, Tab.
I ask pretty much everyone, and it's really interesting because I get quite similar answers on this one. Yep. If you could go back in time and you could talk to young Kel, hindsight, what would be the advice that you would give young Kel if you could have the gift of hindsight? What would you do? What would you say?
Yeah. So, Tab, I've watched a few of your podcasts, I won't lie, and there's a lot of repetition.
It was coming.
Time. The way I factor it in, obviously, you come into this earth with nothing and you'll leave with nothing. Now, I'm not trying to be morbid, but there's a journey accordingly, and I'm not trying to put it in perspective that we're only going to live to a period of time.
Yep.
But the number one lesson learned, if we talk about marathon, not a sprint, 20 years, if we look at it, how quick does 20 years go? 0 to 20, you've got your 21st birthday, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 19 and then 20 to 39, Tab, and 40. I'm just saying purely 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60. So if we do look at time, the earlier we can start. If you're 27s or whatever, look, let's face it, 20 years, you're 47. Holy dooly, I'm now from the second to the third to get the benefit. That lifestyle is so far away. Starting early is without a doubt going to give you that advantage down the track.
Yeah, it's nuts.
What I know now, Tab, as well, so time's the first thing. The other side of the equation, without fail, surround yourself with the knowledge and wisdom of people that have done it.
Yeah.
You physically can't do it on your own. So, man, if I'd have started, geez, I think I'd be coming straight out of university, 21, right, where's your first house? Let's get going on that journey, you know, get junior Jason Wynn, whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, time, exposure to those people that are around you to help you on that journey. It's a lessons learned experience, something you can talk to. If you're going to do it by yourself, you need, some people are lucky, Tab, they've just bought it, you know what I mean, and it sits there and they buy another one, but you need a more robust plan in place to have accordingly. Yeah.
So a plan as well is a big part of it. There's a family that I'm hoping to get on for a podcast. I haven't quite talked them into it yet. I sowed the seed last night when I was talking to them. And they're quite incredible. And I think this all just, I mean, it blew my mind. And I've been, like I said, coaching 15 years with this stuff. Yeah. So the parents have got 2 young daughters and they wanted to invest. So the parents said, right, go save the deposits. We'll go to contract on behalf of you in the interim. We'll settle it if you don't. But we're going to essentially get this off the plan for you ladies to sort. They saved up at 15 and 17. They started saving. And at 18 and 20, they are now, the contract's gone into their name and they are buying their first investment property while being teenagers, while being at uni. One of them's 2 years into a law degree. They've been working almost full time while doing uni and stuff and school to come up with a deposit. And the eldest has even got together with her partner and has saved a deposit for a house in the interim on top of, they've come up with 20% in total for their off the plan. Isn't that amazing? And they're 18 and 20. Yeah.
And hear those stories, you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. It always comes back to that time Tab, 100%. And in fact, you get so excited when you hear those stories to realise, geez, what a great future. You know, those young kids, as they go along the journey, they've got the early experiences, but again, that education comes into play. Surely there must have been there from those parents to go, hey, you know, open those values.
Parenting, right?
Absolutely, Tab. And it's amazing that kids actually listen, Tab. Not that I have any, but yeah.
Oh. My daughter would kill me if I commented on her at all in any way in this forum. So I'm just going to remain totally mum.
Yeah. Don't play that bit, Tab.
But no, you know, I thought that was probably one of the better stories that I've come across as far as people starting young. Like, I mean, that's nuts. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you've only got, I keep saying it, but you've only got to hear a marathon. Marathon is a long time. You know what I'm saying? It's not, so if you hear that advice, it does take time. Absolutely. And again, there's hurdles accordingly, Tab, in it. You know what I mean? If you've got, again, I go back to the people around you.
Yep.
We wouldn't have been, I can tell you now, if we hadn't got back in the PRE group, we would not have been in that position where we'd gone, you know what, let's get a couple straight away accordingly. Yeah. Because, you know, equity arbitrage, all those sort of things that you learn, you know what I mean? It's funny, it's a valuable tool to have that around you in that time you've got. And the last comment on that, Tab, I won't lie, I'm absolutely scared because you're late 40s. Let's just face it, I'm not 65. I will never retire at that age. But you know, when you say you're in that third quarter, I tell you what, there's not a lot of time left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't mean to sound morbid, but there's not a lot of time. So that's why we want to make sure it's done correctly. But my God, if only I was 27.
Yeah. Well, very, very, very sage advice and wise words, my friend. So
Yes.
And so for everybody in their 40s, like it's not too late, but you do need you need a solid plan. In your 50s, even so, it starts to get hairy. It's not too late. There's always a next step and a solution. But there might be some realities around your situation, what's achievable. But taking steps, being better than where your current trajectory is always a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for today. And I think that was a really valuable chat, especially around, having your rapport, having the right person that's assisting you on your path. I love the story about your drug mule and the bikies and so forth. I must say, I'm glad that wasn't me, but it sounds like you've handled it with aplomb. And really, the key thing in this, I think, is your mindset. Congratulations on fostering, really healthy, quality mindset around your investing and around challenges, because how we process challenges, what we make them mean, and how we work through them is all determines our success. So congratulations.
No, thanks, Tab. And I think to the PRE group, obviously, when we did first join, it was, it's like any business kicking off sort of thing, Tab. It has changed immensely. Even when I had a bit of email sort of chat with Sammy back in the day about, listen, you need to get onto Facebook. I didn't want to get onto Facebook, Tab. It just wasn't for me accordingly. But regularly listen to all the podcasts, Jason in the morning. I don't necessarily get time to do it, all sort of things. But it's a credit to yourself, Jace, Sam, the coaches you've got. It's a completely different outlook now in terms of having those coaches on board now that, that are part of that group, Tab. So credit to yourself as well. You're in good hands.
Thank you so much. Well, we've got an awesome team.
No worries.
Awesome. Well, we'll end it on that note. Thank you so much for your time today. And if there's anyone else out there, clients that would like to share your story, please don't hesitate to reach out for me. I'm always looking for new, I call them my victims of my podcast. I should probably change that based on our conversation. But it usually genders a giggle. All righty. Thanks.
All right, Tab. Pleasure. No worries.
Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.